Now available on Tata Sky channel number 526.
Welcome to Magicbricks Now. You're watching the Urban Debate. I'm Faye D'Souza. Let's take a look at what's making headlines today. Kerala becomes the first state in the country to introduce a real estate regulator. The regulator will come into force on the 1st of April. That's a Magicbricks Now exclusive. The Chief Economic Advisor, Arvind Subramanian, red flags property taxes, calls for an overhauling of the entire property tax regime, says this can be used to finance smart city projects in the economic survey that was tabled today. The Central Bank of India asks buyers to exercise caution when dealing with real estate giant Unitech. The bank calls Unitech a defaulter and says the company has delayed payments on an installment of 38 crore rupees. Developers and architects cry foul as the Pune Metropolitan Region Development Authority puts several projects on hold for months. Builder body claims incompetent officers are failing to either interpret or implement bylaws. All right, the run-up to the big union budget announcement is reaching a climax. Home buyers and developers are keeping their fingers crossed. All eyes are now on the team of the government. And people have one question. Will Achchedin finally show up for home buyers? Here on the Urban Debate, we're asking if the Finance Minister will put your home in the top of the list as a priority for the government. What does Arun Jaitley have in his kitty for affordable housing? Now, the government has announced many ambitious plans on housing for all by 2022, but we're running out of time. And if the government does intend, in fact, to build 6 crore new homes by that deadline, they're going to have to begin moving quickly. On this show today, we're going to figure out what the government is going to need to do to build those many homes and where the opportunities lie for you as a home buyer and possibly also as an investor in this market. Joining me on the show, Ravi Ramu, Managing Director and CEO, Value Budget Housing Corporation, Amit Goenka, MD, CEO of Nisus Finance, and Pankaj Kapoor, MD of Liases Foras. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us on the show. Big question, obviously, affordable housing. I mean, we could take it one step further and ask about, and actually question what affordable housing truly is in this country. Ravi Ramu, you're taking a look at what our affordable housing market is like right now. There's a huge task there for the government, specifically for the Finance Minister. I'm going to ask you, from where you're looking at it, what is it going to take to actually have affordable housing in our cities?
Well, I think, Faye, first of all, a great pleasure to be back with you again on your show. Fantastic privilege. Thank you. I think it's going to take a lot in terms of mindset rather than actual difficulties on the ground. The mindset relates to obviously two lots, the buyer and the builder. The buyer, a lot has been said about subsidies at the lower end in terms of interest rates, giving them credit-linked schemes, looking at smaller houses, affordable houses, low-cost houses. But I think less is often said about the builder. When you're looking at the builder, you've got to make life easier at the affordable housing space for the builder. The usual stories still seem to persist. Decades after we've started crying about for the need for it. What are those usual, the complaints that the builders have had, which the government successively have not looked at? One is a single window clearance. We've been saying this for more than a decade, the building group of people. Single window clearance, we run pillar to post for clearances. That takes a lot of time, effort and money. That increases the cost. So when you're talking about affordable housing, if you have to get it off the ground, and we're talking about not just 6 crores, but at the urban, semi-urban areas, 18.88 million homes to be built. If you look at the KPMG report, which the Prime Minister just released a couple of weeks back. So you've got to make life easier, both in terms of the cost inputs as well as the procedures that are entailed. Getting an affordable housing project off the ground in any state in India is the single most difficult thing for us builders. So if you've got to get the 2022 mantra out and make it work, you've got to make it easier for us to get things done. We are prepared. We've got the funds. We've got the ability. We can get homes prepared, done, ready for occupation in less than 24 months. So I think the government has to look at that way, and without that, all the rest is rhetoric.
Here's the other thing. Now, we went around on this channel, spoke to home buyers, average citizens in all of our big cities, asking them what they need as home buyers. And a lot of times we had people turn around, people working in offices, having MNC jobs, who turned around and said, you know what, we cannot afford to buy homes in any of our big cities. So I think the question really here is not just about what is affordable housing. Yeah. What about regular people who are paying, 20-30% tax at this point, who aren't able to buy homes in our cities? Pankaj, I mean, you've been studying this market for long enough. You know how it works. The fact that if I want to buy, in any of our big cities, I have to go to the outskirts, something that still discourages a lot of people. So if like Ravi's asking for it, we get that single window clearance, there is a likelihood in this budget it will come in only for what the government considers affordable housing, which might not actually be the real demand.
Yeah. In fact, and I'm seeing that, even though we talk about the demand, and I see that the majority of the problems are into the major 10 urban cities and where the majority of the housing need is required. And I also see that the biggest hurdle in all of this affordable housing is the land cost. Today's land cost is pushing the affordable housing so far away that the city's end user can't really interact with those places. So most of these affordable housing projects are, frankly speaking, does not really cater the needs of that urban center. They are too far away. And that's why, that's the biggest problem. So what we need here, the first phase is that we need the moderation in the land prices.
How does one moderate land prices? How is that even possible?
If you look at it, every progressive economy of the world, whether it's Singapore, whether it's a UK, US, one thing they have very interesting is they have got vacant land tax, which India does not have. Why the land prices over here is very high? Because the reason is people park their money in the lands, and they escalate they escalate the prices. So we need the progressive land. We need the productive land.
Pankaj, if you did that, if there was a vacant land tax, there'd be the Indian Railways and the Mumbai Port Trust would be paying most of that tax.
Absolutely, and I tell you, the biggest speculator has been the government urban planning authority. If you look at who is the one who escalated the prices, our chief minister sits down and talks about and says that we need to monetize our land bank. Instead of talking about monetizing the land bank, they should talk about and say that I need to make my land efficient for the social cause of this particular city. I need to create more affordable housing within the convenient.
I want to understand from Ravi. Ravi, when you talk about value budget housing, give us a few examples of locations where this value budget housing is coming up. So if we take, say, Bangalore, for example, where is the value housing coming up in Bangalore? Where are you building right now?
See, you'd be surprised. I think what Pankaj has raised is very interesting. Funnily enough, we don't believe land prices is a hurdle, because what we are finding is our projects in Bangalore, we are on Nice Road, the intersection, that is the Mysore Road in Bangalore, Kengeri. We are in Whitefield, just as the outskirts. So we are not in the back of beyond. And the land price is not stymieing our mathematics. What is stymieing our mathematics, what is making us all pant with pain is actually the approvals process. It takes us a year and a half to get it off the ground. Affordable means you get the land, you work with a JD, with the landowner. Oftentimes we're working with landowners, we're not buying the land, but we need to get that off the ground quickly. We have the equipment, we have the means.
Tell us what the pricing is.
What are you pricing city centers, that is oversold, overbought. We are pricing at affordable prices. We launched,
Go ahead, Ravi.
Sorry, there's an echo here. So, we are talking about less than 3,000 rupees a square foot in places like, the Mysore Road and the nice intersection. We are not talking about gigantic places. People can afford it. People are able to come, they buy, so the demand is there, and the houses will be from 20 lakhs to 40 lakhs, the sweet spot. So the point, Faye, that you raised earlier, it is the person who's not from the rural districts. It is the urban Indian who cannot afford the 1 crore or the 2 crore home who is coming to us. And it's not at the back of beyond. So if you make life easy for us to build, VBHC is there. We have the means to do it, but make it easier. That's all the plea is. And what we are asking for is also an easier tax regime. There are multiple taxes. There is double taxation. There is indirect tax. There are direct taxes. By the time we are done with the taxes, we are taxed to death. 35 to 40% of the cost, even sometimes more than that, is what is the killer. So the government has the biggest hand to play. Leave us landowners and builders alone. You know, the economics will work for itself. But if the government can simply make it cheaper, easier, and quicker for us to do our projects, we will be able to fulfill this demand. I'm in no doubt.
Well, Amit Goenka, you study this market really carefully. When you're studying where the demand is, and I know that's how you decide where to put your money, is the demand in the 30-40 lakh bracket? Now, Ravi is telling us that that's where they're building right now in Bangalore. But who's building that much, within that bracket in, say, an NCR region or a Mumbai region? Where is that supply coming up?
So again, every city has its own price dynamics depending on the earning capacity of a population. So, for example, Mumbai is the richest city in terms of GDP output. And therefore, certainly because
I'll
of
argue that GDP output is being cornered by a few people
no
and
doubt,
not the entire population
of course.
Mumbai.
But again, financial services generally tends to afford better returns for its people. And therefore, clearly there is a higher spend propensity within certain urban population, especially in cities like Mumbai and Delhi, which are the two top
okay, so hang on.
centers.
Are you telling me that the prices in Mumbai are higher than Bangalore because people in Mumbai are making more money, or because we're just landlocked and the supply is just impossible?
Well, I think both, definitely. But, it's again a function of what is available and what can be made available at a certain price and what people are willing to pay for. So a very clear example is something which was sold not very long time back, maybe 5 years back, in the heart of the city, let's say in Baikala or in Mahalakshmi, for about 15 to 20,000 rupees, is today selling at 45,000 rupees or 50,000 rupees. So clearly the ability to pay has also gone up. It's not that the land was already there. It was locked in, 8 years back, 7 years back.
Pankaj disagrees that it's the ability to pay.
Look at it's like I see it's highly speculative, and cities' land is locked, and because of that it's being speculated quite a lot. And if I'm saying that the capacity hasn't really increased, had the capacity been increased, so then we wouldn't be sitting onto that kind of a inventory glut, and we wouldn't be seeing that NPAs coming. If you look at last 10 years, in the luxury segments, we have only produced 4 buildings in Mumbai, which has got ready.
Yeah, we've started a lot.
Which nothing really happened. So there are number of buildings which got launched, and why we are not able to finish it. The basic reason is the prices are killing it. Prices have become unproductive. So you are not able to sell. So saying that Mumbai is having a capacities, the people have capacities to pay, I disagree. There are, I'll give you an example. 2005 Mumbai, when we didn't have the money or any other things, we were selling 60,000 units, and we used to maintain 60,000 units unsold stock. During this period, only good thing with all this money has done is it has brought a lot of supply. My today's unsold inventory is 1,70,000, and my sales has come down to 40,000. So that means builders' commitment has increased 3-fold or 4-fold. However, their sales have sales have come down, and that's the basic reason why we are into the stress situation. Mumbai, with this kind of supply, should sell close to 1,60,000 units per year, and there's a good number of demand. So if you look at if the prices comes down, so if you look at Mahada recently came up with the lottery for 4,000 flat, there is 1,60,000 people's application. Yes. And while builders sit down and says that sentiments is wrong, and because of that I'm not able to sell.
What are Mahada houses being priced at?
They are much lower. That is still like, if you look at, they are probably 20-25% lower than the prevailing market values.
All right, I just want to do this to illustrate to our panelists what we're talking about. These are home buyers across various cities. My reporters at Magicbricks Now stepped out to meet home buyers like you and me. These are people like you and me. This is not what Mahada is targeting. This is this is just regular average people who have jobs, who want to buy homes. Listen to what they had to say.
चीटर बिल्डर्स काफ़ी एंटर हो गए हैं मार्केट में, उनकी वजह से जनरल बिल्डर परेशान हो रहे हैं। लोगों को घर खरीदने में बड़ा शक रहता है कि कहाँ से लें, क्या पता धोखा ना हो जाए। तो अगर ऐसा कोई बिल आता है जो कंज्यूमर के भी फेवर में हो और बिल्डर के भी फेवर में हो, जिससे एक विश्वास जगे और गवर्नमेंट को भी रेवेन्यू आए और लोग अपना घर खरीद सकें।
Every budget they're defining, we have affordability. Every policy is coming affordable housing and all, but affordable for whom is what they have to define. Like if they give houses for 60 lakh or something, it won't be affordable for a normal person. But maybe high-income groups can afford it, of course. If the salary is 1 crore, 60 lakh is nothing for them.
People are unable to buy any houses, and houses can be brought only in outskirts of Delhi, like Noida, Gurgaon, Meerut side. But the commuting problem comes again. So I think there should be some policy for the lower income group, some middle income group, or there should be some facility in outskirts of Delhi and other towns, like other smart cities coming up. So I think there should be some facilities created and some job opportunities created there itself.
And that's what the average citizen is feeling about buying a home in any of our big cities. Here are the problems. The fact that our entire tax system is tilted against us and actually favors people who invest their money rather than someone who's buying for the first time. Interest rates are still far too high for first-time buyers. The government has not managed to successfully define what affordable housing is. They've not managed to reach out a hand to private builders and form some sort of a partnership to build those homes. Even if I go out and buy a home that's within my bracket in Ambernath or Badlapur or some other outskirt part of any city, it's impossible to travel into the city because two things have failed. Urban planning has failed, we don't have transportation, and the government is not managed in any of our cities to decongest our business districts and move jobs outside of the central part of our cities as well, which requires all of us to come into the city to work every day, adding pressure again to the system. Our homes are not a priority for this government just yet. We're hoping that that changes in the budget. But in the meantime, we're going to have to look after ourselves. And that first point that was made by the first buyer who spoke, when he said regulation is a must in this industry, where is the real estate regulator? Why can't the government just make peace on this one thing and pass the real estate regulator, which is so important? For something that commands about 50% of our average take-home salaries, we don't have a regulator. We have a regulator for a mutual fund where the minimum investment is 500 rupees a month. Here I'm spending upwards of 50 lakh rupees unto 1 crore rupees. And if you're buying in central Mumbai, you can go as high as 80 crore rupees. There's no regulator for this market. It doesn't seem like our homes are a priority. Our phone lines are open. If you have questions for our panel, pick up the phone and call us. We'll talk about neighborhoods. We'll talk about buildings. We'll talk about how to make the most of your buy. Amit Goenka, is there a need to rationalize our tax system on both ends? On one end, I'm being taxed, there's stamp duty, there's registration, there's service tax, there's VAT, there's property tax, all of those things. From what we understand, if GST comes in, it will replace service tax. It will not replace stamp duty, it will not replace registration. It doesn't seem like the government likes the home buyer at this point.
Well, there's no doubt about it that there's a huge need to overhaul taxes, especially in certain ticket sizes and especially the affordable segment. I think one clear argument is that how can you have a 20% indirect tax and a 20% direct tax, effectively making almost 40% of the value of the home to be paid to the government by way of taxes in some form of shape, which is obviously a direct burden to the consumer. Second, obviously, as Ravi also mentioned, there is double taxation at multiple points, especially at the point of input as well as at the point of purchase. It's clearly the economics of taxation is clearly tilted against the...
You know, to take it one step further, today the economic survey talks about how a good way to increase revenue for local bodies. All of our local bodies, let me point out, are extremely inefficient, and I don't think increasing their revenue is the real problem. I think actually making them accountable is the problem. But they've talked about increasing property tax and increasing property tax on a market that is crawling at this point. So you're going to flog that horse some more. and make sure that it becomes even more difficult for an average person to buy a home.
Which is why it's been the bane, the government taxation has been the bane of the industry for a very, very long time. Clearly, the entire introduction of service tax and VAT, which means there's really confusion still whether purchasing of a house is purchasing of goods or is it purchasing of a service, and then the verdict is, oh, we don't know, so let's just apply
tax it on both ends.
Yeah, just apply both these taxes. So clearly it's really, really counterproductive, especially for those who can't afford a ready home, have to really pay in EMIs, have to pay in parts for an under construction property. They're worse off because they really don't have the money to actually go and put a big check down and buy a ready home, which means that they have to actually pay service tax.
And if that home is not delivered, if that home is not delivered in 3 years, then their deduction on their pre-EMIs goes down to 30,000 rupees from the 2 lakh rupees that they're entitled to. So it's completely ridiculous. Pankaj, are we favouring investors?
We have been favouring the investors. If you look at the laws were written down when the First Income Tax Act came in, and we haven't really changed. But if you look at, there's a sea change in the real estate industry and mortgage industry has come. At that point in time, it could have been like government wanted investors and government wanted, rich people to come and put in the money in the real estate. So they made the policy which were pro-investor. So if you look at one more side of it, if I'm the first-time home buyer, my rebate is exemption is only to the extent of 2 lakh rupees. Yeah. And if I am an investor, as long as I'm putting the property on the rental, my whole interest amount is waived off. Now you think in that sense, my today's rental yield is only 2%. My interest is ranging 9% to 10%. There's a clear-cut saving. And if you see the statistics and data, last decade, most of the people who are buying the property, at least 60 to 70% of the purchasers were the one who are buying third property, fourth property, fifth property for the sake of investment. What it has done is it has also given an impetus for price rises, which has actually also become a counterproductive to overall market. So if you look at the government, if they have to fulfill the need for housing for all, they have to look back and say that this was an outdated law. Now we have more enabler
Pankaj,
industry.
I would love for this system to be linked to inflation. Now, instead of us sitting around every year before the budget saying, oh, they really need to increase the deduction on home loans because it just doesn't match the market. We shouldn't have to do that. It should simply be, linked to inflation.
Exactly. I see that our policy has to be like the monetary policies. It should be linked to the inflation as well as macroeconomic environment. You just can't say that it is a static laid down as per the law laid down 40, 50 years back. You just can't continue to be. Whole dynamics of the real estate has changed. You cannot completely depend upon investors for these industries to prosper. And investors actually, participation is robbing the right of the people to purchase the property.
To buy homes. That's true. Yeah, in fact, I will interrupt you there. Bharat Mohan is on the phone line. He's a viewer who's called us right now. Bharat, tell us what your question is.
Yeah, hi Faye, and good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening.
My name is Bharat. I'm calling from Bangalore. I have made an investment in a property in Electronic City Phase 1.
Okay.
A ready-to-move-in property. Of course, I always, as with every other viewer, I would just like to ensure myself that, I have made the correct investment. So I would just, like to know from all of you as to what are the chances or what is the infrastructure which is going to come around Electronic City which would increase the rates in Electronic City.
Increase the rates in Electronic City. Just tell me something very quickly, Bharat. Is this a 2-bedroom that you've bought?
No, it's a 3 BHK.
It's a 3
and it's
BHK.
a Nidadri road.
Okay, and is it generating any sort of rental income for you right now?
No, it's an almost ready-to-move-in apartment, so I'll be moving in the next couple of months. It's a self-use apartment.
Okay, so it's self-use. It's not okay. So you've bought a home. You just want to make sure that the price of that home appreciates and you get good infrastructure. Ravi Ramu,
Right.
Electronic City used to be a nightmare at one point. There's now a road that eases that off a little bit. But like everything else in Bangalore, far behind the curve, not able to keep up with with the kind of demand there is for infrastructure. The biggest important and the most important thing for Electronic City will obviously be the job creation and the fact that he can rent it out, and that will always create an impetus for real estate prices.
Absolutely.
But what's your outlook on Electronic City going forward?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think, Faye, you've hit the nail on the head. It is going to be the employment generation. Mr. Bharat, you've got to look and see how many companies come in there, what is the commercial and office space that is being built around your home or leading up to your house. And that, I think, really is the affordable and not so affordable market story in India. It's not just Electronic City in Bangalore, and I speak to you from Bangalore. It is the whole business environment that is surrounding you. And I think Electronic City is booming. You can't get better. Bangalore itself has had, for several years, year after year, the highest intake of commercial space. So you're in the right city. Are you in the right area? I think you are, because the hub of Bangalore's IT, as we all know, is sitting out there. So I think you're in the right space. Infrastructure, we all have to be patient. Bangalore itself is creaking, and that it's not on its own. This problem exists everywhere. You spend hours on roads. So I think that is taken for granted as a bugbear. But I think you just keep counting as you go home, in case the traffic is holding you up, which I'm sure it is, how many buildings get occupied. And I think that will determine the value of your home going forward. But if it's your only or main residence, I don't think I'd be too worried about the exact value on it. But I can tell you, you're in the right place. And if your builder has given you a good product, you're in great hands.
On your screen right now, if you're watching, Bharat, is the price of Electronic City. It's gone up 18% over the last 2 years. It's currently trading at about 3,927 rupees per square foot, which is a great rate for Bangalore. Also, Pankaj, the thing that we've noticed is when infrastructure is bad, which it is in most of our cities, it's specifically bad in Bangalore at this point. When infrastructure is bad, homes built closest to spaces of work, which Electronic City is, actually do well, because then people want to live as close to the office as possible. They don't want to have to drive in and out. So in this case, by that argument, Bharat might have put himself in a very good position.
No, true. And in fact, look at, there's a very nice theory of the economic geography which says that we all live in a cage of a time and a space. I've been allotted 24 hours to live. 8 hours my body clock requires me to sleep. 10 hours my office wants me to work. Then I'm left with only 6 hours.
If you sleep in your car, you might save something.
That's not really possible. I still need to lie down. Now, what happens is, then you have got out of this 6 hours, only 6 hours you have left. How much you can afford to travel. That's why each city, if you look at, has an imaginary boundary.
Okay.
Which is a travel boundary. Why Bangalore now today has become a polycentric cities, like Whitefield has its own micro market. And from
you're saying all these centers have boundaries around them, which is how far people are willing to travel.
How much they can afford to travel.
Sure.
Like out of this cage. So 45 minutes is considered to be the efficient limit. The moment it goes beyond 1.5 hours, which is now our average trends for Bangalore.
Everybody who lives in Thane, you suddenly broke their hearts.
So then they tend to go and live closer to their office. And that's why, the demand for the, living close to the office is always high.
Okay, Amit, I'm going to ask you to stick your neck out a little bit. If we're looking at, 3,900 rupees on an average per square foot in Electronic City, to answer Bharat's question, do you see that becoming 5,000 rupees at some point, 6,000? How long do you think that will take?
Not in the near future for sure, Faye, because the sheer amount of development beyond Electronic City Phase 1 to Phase 2 and Phase 3 is very, very immense and massive. You'll see a huge amount of townships under development, even nearly completing, which are still available for sale within the 4,000 mark, which is again obviously a very attractive price, but the supply is also enormous. There's the new outer ring road extension, which is obviously affecting the ability for people to actually come into that micro market and buy. Clearly the development is further gone within 5 to 10 kilometers also south of that area, whether you're going to Anikal, Attibal, etc., where you're seeing a lot of people who are actually catering to the Electronic City micro market, even give houses which are maybe 30 minutes or 15 minutes or between 15 minutes to 45 minutes away from Electronic City at even lower prices.
So it's fair, you're saying there will be growth, but he's going to have to wait.
Yes, I mean, of course, because it is an active micro market, like Ravi and Pankaj rightly mentioned, that it is a place where people work, and so there will be demand. Demand will obviously lead to inflation-led escalations in valuations.
Sure.
But I don't expect a huge jump now over the next couple of years.
All right, so to answer your question, Bharat, good choice there with Electronic City. I hope you also work in Electronic City. That would be fantastic for you. You will see growth in that market. You might have to wait a little bit. It is a bit of a muted market, but thumbs up from all three of our guests. Hold on to to that buy. You've made a good decision. Arif is also on the phone line. Arif, good evening. Tell us what your question is.
Hi, Faye. And first of all, I'd like to say this is a great channel which is educating us. And before we go ahead, I would like to just comment on Bharat's question because I already have a property in Electronic City. It's Karnataka Housing Board in Suryanagar.
Okay.
And I would completely agree with what Amit was saying. Maybe it's the right place, but 5 years is what we're looking at because I bought this property in 2011. And as of now, if I see the appreciation, I would say it's quite marginal. It's not the kind of change that we expect. So that's my feedback. And now moving down to my question, I've seen a lot of relatives, my brothers, my sisters, most of them, they have cash and they can invest between this 35 to 50 lakh category for apartments. But actually what's holding us back is the kind of stories that we hear from our friends. People have invested in flats waiting for 4 to 5 years. Delivery is not taking place and then, rates going up. So this has actually created a lot of negative sentiment. And I think if the government creates a policy or something that will be like a support system for the consumers, I think that will actually up, the confidence of the buyers in the system. So this is something that most of us feel like, the government needs to do something to support us, someone where we could go.
Arif, I completely understand what you're saying and I'm completely on your side. This is a campaign we've had on this channel for a couple of months now saying that we do need a regulator. We needed a regulator 5 years ago. Yeah. I mean, it's already far too late. But it does seem, we've gone from session of parliament to session of parliament, season after season, where the parliament hasn't gotten any work done. Now, it's one thing to wait for the regulator, but in the meantime, I think as customers and as home buyers, we need to start looking after ourselves, and that's something that's really important. Now, while there are some scary stories in the market, and we carry some scary stories on this channel as well, I'll also tell you this, and I'm being honest as a home buyer myself, as a citizen of Bangalore myself, I'll tell you this. If you're careful enough about choosing a developer in your project very, very carefully, it's up to us to do that homework, you'll still find great value and great product in the market. Pankaj, give Arif a checklist that he can use for his friends and his family. Anybody who's nervous at this point, if they were to go out and actually find a good builder, a good developer who's not going to leave them high and dry, what are the things that they have to keep in mind?
2-3 things don't look at big name, look at healthy names.
What's the difference?
Big names generally the one who gives the full page advertisements and things like it, and they become very, very big developer.
So
what you need to say, how much someone has produced,
Okay.
how many square feet he has been delivering year on year, how many projects are ongoing, and there's a work which is going on. Don't go and see just the patra. Go and see how much of stock they have delivered in the last 3 years, 4 years, and 5 years time. Also go to their website, different websites available. Now you do the Google, you get a lot of things like, whether the consumer complaints are there, several things. Do some bit of research. Go and choose the location very well. Don't go and look the properties from the point of view, builders tells you stories, buy today and so much of appreciation will take place this scheme and that scheme. Make sure that the place is livable. Go and visit in the night also. See to it that that place becomes,
it's active and it's
secure
safe,
or not. And then only you consider to purchase, and do not, rush into the things.
Okay.
Take
I want to put this in a nutshell for Arif. First of all, very interesting point. It's delivery, not launches, that we want to be impressed with. So those full page ads on the fronts of the newspaper, those are product launches. We're not impressed with those. We're impressed with actual physical delivery of homes. You want to go and look at those homes, Go to a building that the developer has delivered in the past, ring the doorbell, speak to someone who lives there, say, are you happy? Did you have a good experience? What was it like when you bought? What was it like on possession? Did they treat you well? And here's the interesting thing. Now, every developer will have 3 or 4 construction sites. Go look for active construction sites. We can tell by standing outside. Are there cranes moving? Are there trucks going in and out? Is there actual construction taking place on these sites? Or are they just empty sites with no activity happening on them? That's an interesting thing to keep in mind. And of course, like Pankaj said, I mean, we live in the era of the internet. Do some research. Find out which builders have a lot of complaints against them. Look at Facebook. Look at websites. You'll be able to tell. You'll be able to tell good, solid construction, good reputation for delivery, delivery on time, and delivery of quality. If you can check all of those boxes, and it'll bring down your consideration list to a small group of people. But if you check all of those boxes, you'll be in a pretty good position. Don't put it off because you're waiting for a regulator, because I'm telling you this, we do not know how long we are going to have to wait for that regulator. Uday Modi is on the phone line from Mumbai. Uday, go ahead.
Thank you.
Hello.
Yes, Uday, if you go ahead.
My anxiety is that sometime back I was listening to a gentleman saying that the Mahada, they got number of applications whereas the premises were less. So they say, why do you buy, first of all, regarding the rates and also the surety they are going to get the houses. Now the thing is that most of the people are afraid of the builders also. Sometimes they show the rosy picture, but they don't give the deliveries at the time. For one reason or the other, maybe financial, whatever it is, they get stuck up.
Yes.
Can the government not create a pool and in association with the regulator where the members, all the builders should be those who are good, whose title is clear, they should be made the member of that pool, and
That's
government should assure them, see, look here, your money we will give you. Whereas the buyer of the flats, they should say, look here, you can buy the flats to the pool, and government guarantees you that you will get the delivery in time, otherwise we will take care of the builder. And you pay us the installment of 15 years or 20 years, the money, the government will bear this thing to see that you get the housing, proper housing, and at the low rate of interest. Because if the government is serious about housing the people, they should, I think, try to take a little bit of the burden on them so that the builders are also comfortable, as well as the buyer is also sure that they won't be duped and they will be also comfortable. So I think if this kind of arrangement is possible, it will be excellent,
That's an interesting recommendation. Uday, I want to remind you, when you say government should take up the burden, that burden will come out of your tax money, which the government will also take from you at the end of the day. So keeping that in mind, Ravi Ramu, do you think that's a viable solution, that the government takes over projects? I have a couple of concerns here. Does the government have the ability to complete a project on its own? Is it just financing that's the problem here? What's your response to that suggestion?
No, I think, Faye, the two have to be kept separate. Then never the twain shall meet. And the two are the government and the builder. Where the government can help is the private sector. Of course, the public sector, there is a National Housing Board, there are state housing boards. Let them build. Let them do what was just suggested. But when you look at the private sector, people like us, we cannot be governed financially by the government. We have to have free play. If you take, for example, you're talking about Bombay, we have a project in Palghar, which is 2 hours away from the town, from the airport in Bombay. And we just delivered 168 flats 2 weeks back in less than 2 years. And Palghar is not in the middle of too many huge urban developments. But it has created an ecosystem. It has created the employment that we talked about earlier. The two main things that the builder has a bugbear with are the two abilities. One is the operational ability to build a home, and two is the financial ability. And then there is this government which produces all this support structure, the tax, the cost, and the facility. I think we have to talk more, rather than the cost, we have to talk more about the ease of doing business. Our Prime Minister talks about India being an easy country to work in and do business in. It is definitely not. You go to Palghar, we had to create the whole infrastructure. Now other big builders have bought land because we have proven that model. So I think the story has to be the private sector being allowed to come into the hinterlands, the not just the outskirts of cities, but going beyond in areas like Bombay and Delhi especially. You can go 1-2 hours away, Bhiwadi, there are so many areas we're talking about in these regions. So I don't think it is financial support we need from the government. It is the ability to conduct our business easily and with not a double taxed and double licensed, treble licensed, 5 times licenses on the same things over. And I think we'll be able to deliver. We have proven it in spite of the hurdles that we have to cross. And I think we have shown to the buyer. The buyer is amazed. We say, come and take delivery, and it's in less than 2 years. So the buyer cannot believe that the home is ready to be done. So it's proven. Let's make it easier is all that is required. Right. But financially, let them keep away, because regulation can be over-regulation as well. I know Faye, Times Now and Magicbricks are doing a great job with the regulator. But what I fear with the regulator coming in is over-regulation. It was earlier said, I think one of the home buyers you interviewed about half an hour back in the show, she hit the nail on the head. There are smart cities, there are outer areas. We are talking about the 20 and 40, 45 lakh space, not the 1 crore or the 70 lakh space. And this space is ripe. Only if this space is conquered, well, will housing for all ever be a possibility? Right. Forget in 2022, but I'm saying ever.
Uday, just to give you an example, one of the biggest problems that the industry has is the problem of environment clearances, which in some cases take upwards of 3, 4, in some cases 10 years to get. And just to give you an example, in the matter of construction permits, India rates this year at 183 in the world in the ease of doing business out of 187. That's how bad we are. And unless that problem is being fixed, and your suggestion is good, that's what the government needs to be focusing on, to speed up those processes so homes can be delivered faster. When you have more supply, the price automatically gets rationalized in this market. We're talking about what it's going to take to make it possible for all of us to buy homes. These are not affordable homes. These are homes that are within our reach and actually have the ability to buy within the cities that we're talking about, within considerable driving distance, so we don't have to spend all of our time in our cars. Mr. Murthy is on the phone line from Bangalore with a question for us. Go ahead, Mr. Murthy. What's your question?
Yeah. See, I just want to know what are the future infrastructure developments that are going to happen in Nelamangala, that is in Bangalore.
Right. It's Nelamangala. You're looking at Nelamangala in particular. Who wants to take this question? Should we toss it back to Ravi Ramu since he's in Bangalore? Ravi, what sort of infrastructure are we going to see coming into that Nelamangala area? There's one bottleneck for traffic there particularly that causes problems every time someone drives in and out of Bangalore via Nelamangala. When is that going to be ironed out?
I think, not just Nelamangala, but one great hope for Bangalore is the metro. The next lines are talking about 12 to 16 kilometers is coming through, we hear, end of this year at the latest. And most of the underground is done and things like that. So I think it's important to declog the city, which this should do in a major sense. Again, I think, the Nelamangala area and other areas similar to that, even the electronic city areas, just require lesser traffic, because to increase the number of roads or the availability of the inner or outer ring roads in whichever area we're talking about, including Nelamangala, is going to take some time. So I think the idea is what are the properties which are going to come up, the home properties available for sale in the Nelamangala area. We have to look at micro markets. If you look at Bangkok, say even 15, 20, 25 years back, everything was clogged. Faye, like you said, everyone was driving into the city. But if you now look at Bangkok, all the flyovers are there, the over the roads, free flow of traffic happens. So I think, this is the only solution for places like Bangalore. Whitefield is a great example. And I think Nelamangala has to take that route, and it will happen, where it develops its own ecosystem, the offices and the homes. So I think that really is the solution for Nelamangala, rather than infrastructure improving and feeding and improving and decongesting the roads.
Amit, would you bet on Nelamangala?
Well, not yet, I think. We're still, as if maintained, are more North Bangalore focused, because in terms of growth, it's obviously shown the most promise. In terms of infrastructure development, because of the airport connectivity, there are roads, there are flyovers, there are...
Although Pankaj and I were just talking about the fact that if you're buying in North Bangalore, you should be very concerned about the water supply problem.
Yeah, so Bangalore, well, it is getting solved. Yes, Bayappa, the entire Bayappa region as such had a water supply problem to start with when it was conceptualized a few years back, but gradually projects have been given water. There is underground water which is being tapped. And clearly, I mean, the problem of water is not just limited to North Bangalore. It is in general a problem for Bangalore. So
that's no consolation whatsoever.
Well, it is not. So you got to live with what the city offers, and whether it's the Kaveri or any other source of water that will be made available to Bangalore and Karnataka as a whole. But I'm just saying, from a value buy perspective, we're looking at value buying as an investor. And clearly value buying is very, very prominent in parts of North Bangalore, or even, or Northeast Bangalore, which I mentioned as an industrial belt. I mean, that's really our focus area right now. We're very, very selectively looking at...
So you're focusing on the Tanisandra, Hennur, Yelahanka, those neighborhoods.
Absolutely. That is one bit, and obviously the south of Electronic City, which is towards the Nice corridor, is the second bit. So these are the two sort of micro markets that we remain focused as value buying propositions.
I wouldn't really bet too much about the north sides because the low habitability. So if you look at the polarization has happened mostly on the Sharjapur side and Electronic City side, because that's where the economic hubs have got
road is very expensive, Pankaj.
No, it's like it's a very long stretch, and so I know it is expensive, but then where the economy is, that where the employment is taking place, you should always move towards that side. At least there is a micro market.
Actually, let's look at this. Let's look at these numbers. Tanisandra in Bangalore is currently trading at about 5,000 rupees a square foot. It's gone up considerably, 29% in the last 1 year. If we pull up Sarjapur Road, which my producer is going to put on the screen in a minute, we'll see that comparison of whether we've seen similar increase in Sarjapur. Sarjapur Road, 6% in the last 1 year.
It's a very
around the same price, about 5,000 rupees a square foot, but there might be a case there for some sort of oversupply in Sarjapur.
No, it is oversupply, but nevertheless, like if you have seen in past very high peak, then you probably be a little, careful about moving in that market. Probably the market's already taken 2 years advance appreciation. So, thinking from the point of your investment from today onwards, you need to be a little careful and say that I need to go into the market where there is a more buyers. And one more thing.
So if you're comparing, say, Nelamangala now, which was the question that Murthy asked us on the phone, would you say Nelamangala or Sarjapur Road? You say Sarjapur
I'm not able to figure out Nelamangala. I'm sorry.
It's on the route optimized. Okay. All right. So Nelamangala might be a while in terms of waiting. Amit Goenka recommends, North Bangalore. Pankaj recommends maybe the Sarjapur Road area if you're looking as an investment. And it's obviously an investment. I can't imagine someone going to live in Nelamangala at this point. It's still fairly outside of the city. Remember, if you have any more questions, you can pick up the phone and call us. Closing statements from our guests. We're running out of time. I want to know, if I were to be able to buy a home in the city that I live in within that considerable driving distance or train distance or travel time that we're talking about, what is the one thing that this government is going to have to do? Amit Goenka.
It will have to certainly, A, rationalize taxes, B, bring accountability for the money that it has been allocating year on year for various projects, whether it's Rajiv Awas Yojana, Indira Awas Yojana, the Affordable Housing for All 2022, Smart City program, because that is a lot of money put together, and have to bring accountability for the use of that money in the hands of various development bodies, and how it is being made available for EWS and LIG segments. And the third thing is, clearly, I would agree with Ravi that you need to obviously debottleneck the system of approvals. There must be penalties now. The government should be willing to take on itself, for approvals or for not fast-tracking certain projects, which will obviously benefit the consumer in some way.
Pankaj?
Number of things like, bring in cheaper capital for the developers. I would say that, counter the delays bring in the efficiencies in regards to single window clearances and other things. Apart from that, bring in the policy which is pro end user rather than investors. You know, you should look at the end user, and the whole efficiency in the system will come in.
Well, Pankaj, obviously one of the problems that the market is facing is that of finance. We know that there are a lot of developers right now who are over leveraged. A lot of buildings have been stalled because there just isn't enough money to finish it. And the rate at which the industry is borrowing, so for a developer who's run out of money, he cannot borrow for any less than 20 or 22, sometimes 25% interest.
Absolutely.
That is a huge problem that's going to snowball in the future. Is there any sort of a solution the finance minister
government also has to acknowledge no builder needs money for construction. Builder needs money for buying the land. Because we sell pre-sales. We sell in the under construction. My sales proceed can take care of most of the construction.
Okay.
Government has to look into this and say that if the developer need is for buying the land, let bank to finance for the land. What is it happening? Because the RBI has curtailed, say that bank cannot finance the land. So developer, what they do is they make a project and say that they increase the cost and they increase the price, and so that they create a gap, and that gap is utilized for buying another piece of land rather than utilizing for that part. And that's where the leverage takes place. For buying the land, most of the developers today are relying on private equity or informal sources. And this private equity capital of 25% is going into the land is escalating the value of the land.
Given where all of the banking system is right now, and it's not in a happy place, do you think the banking system would want anything to do with land banking in the real estate industry?
But I tell
even
you,
if they were allowed?
If you look at this vicariously, it is affected. Because if the land is going up, so the value of the mortgage they are doing, it's also risky. So at the end of it, they are seeing a price correction risk, and they're... So overall sense, if you look at if the rationalization in prices takes place by bringing efficiency in the system, it's going to really help them.
The economic survey this morning brought that up as well. But I'm running out of time, and I want to bring in Ravi Ramu's opinion on what the government is going to have to do within the purview of the union budget to sort of make homes more accessible to the average Indian.
Yeah, I think, Faye, the writing is on the wall. You know, city centers are overcooked. The affordable housing, housing for all kind of slogans will not happen in city centers, nor even the outskirts. If I may term the inner outskirts, and then there is these outer outskirts, you know, just to bring in a concept. So I think it's going to be in the outer regions of cities. It's going to be 2 hours away. It's going to be in micro markets. So the government has to do 2 things. One, it has to ensure, and builders like us, we are not looking to buy land. I think the moment builders start land banking and thinking of buying land, the difficulties quadruple. The difficulties quadruple because to buy land, it's difficult, it's expensive, to get it re-registered. So re-registration of land is another pain which needs to be eliminated through joint developments. So there are vast tracts of land in and around Indian cities. And we do projects out of Delhi, Chennai, Bangalore, Bombay, and we talk from experience. And what it tells us is that we can easily tie up with land owners on joint development. So the land is taken care of. But make the process of us starting a project easy. Also, make it simple for us. Yes, it just has to, the joint developments have to get easier. And then the government has to bring in special tax concessions for building outside city limits. That's what affordable housing is all about.
All right, so rationalize the tax system
taxes across the board and give the benefit to the rich builder.
All right, rationalize the tax system specifically for that's being built outside of the cities. That's a good way to categorize affordable housing. If we can't decide on maybe a price point or per square foot, actually look at construction sites and how far away they are from the city centre. But we're going to be watching, of course, the union budget very carefully live through the day on Magicbricks Now. For the first time, we'll bring you the home buyer's perspective on whether or not the budget affects your ability to buy a home. How does it? and where you should be investing your money. But a quick recap before we end this show. How do you buy a home in this market? What do you have to keep in mind? We're going to pop that up on your screen one more time. Look for delivery, not for launches. Actually do background checks on all of the developers. Speak to former buyers. Go out and actually speak to someone who lives in a building. Find out what sort of an environment has been created there. Look for active construction sites. Look for builders who deliver quality on time. And of course, check construction sites or check neighborhoods at night to make sure they're safe and they're active, and do a lot of research online. That's Home Buying 101 from Magicbricks Now for you. If you have any questions, you know how to get in touch with us. We're run out of time on the show. Gentlemen, thank you so much for spending time with us this evening on the Urban Debate. We're going to be right here, right through the weekend and on Monday to take you through the Union Budget here on Magicbricks Now. Thanks for watching.